Okay, there we go. It's not frozen anymore. Ah. Okay, looks like we're back. Sorry about that if you were just on here and I shut it off on you. I'm going to go ahead and add Haley.
Hi, let's see if this works. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hi, let's see. Hold on. Hi,
Welcome, welcome.
how are you? It's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good. Remind me, where are you living?
I'm in Philadelphia.
Oh, are we requesting multiple people? Oh, this is so
Oh,
crazy.
I think I pressed the wrong button. Sorry. I don't know what I'm doing. I like normally don't do lives with people.
I've done them a couple times and it always takes like a while for it to get going. But I just wanted to touch base with you and catch up because I mean, you have so many amazing people in your program. And I work with a lot of people who are new to tech too. And I know that a common theme is like, okay, now that I'm making money or I'm about to start making money, like, how do I manage it? So I know we'll get into all
Mhm.
of that. I'm sure if people are following, they know you. I don't know if they know me, but if you want to introduce yourself, because I know I have some people tuning in as well. I'd love
Mhm.
for you to do that, and then I'll do the same.
Okay, that sounds perfect. Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to figure out how to get the screen to go back to normal, but I guess I'm too much of a elder millennial to figure it out.
Yeah,
So
I have no
anyway,
idea.
hey everyone who doesn't know me, I'm Charlotte. I basically started a career in data analytics from being an academic researcher because I was overworked and underpaid and just wanted a better career. So I went from making 28K to 70K in my first data analytics job, and in less than 4 years, climbed my way up to 158K just within data analytics, getting raises and promotions. And then last year, I started answering questions on TikTok about it. And now I have my own free course and my own paid program on everything you need to know to get into data analytics. And now that's what I do full time is help people get into data analytics. So it's been really fun. And a lot of people who go through my course and people who are interested in it always have questions about finances because when you go from 28K to 70K, you're like, oh my God, I like have extra money. Like, what do I do? Or you find yourself still living paycheck to paycheck and you're like, how did that happen? Like, shouldn't I be saving money now that I like doubled my salary, more than doubled it? So that's the segue into Haley.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so crazy your story because some of my program students are the same thing. They like pivoted into tech or pivoted into like more higher income fields. And they're like, I was a barista, like making $15 to $20 an hour, and all of a sudden they're making like over 100K, and they're like, how the hell do I manage this? Which is a good problem to have. When you're making more money, you can make changes a little bit quicker. So drop any finance questions that you have. We'll get into it. I'm going to introduce myself now too. So I was following Charlotte for a while. That's when I reached out, and I think we just started like chatting because you have your own business and I have my own business. So I'm Haley. I founded Femme Financial Coaching as my business. I teach financial literacy, investing, debt management, like how to get out of debt, everything, primarily to women, people of color, LGBTQ plus. Like my goal for my business is to help close the investing gap that exists and get more money in the hands of women because I truly believe financial literacy is the key to building wealth. So I do one-on-one coaching. I have a coaching program. I've helped thousands and thousands of women over the past couple of years. And then prior to going into my business full time, I was a recruiter in tech. So I worked at my way up to Apple. So I was doing headhunting, things like that. So I've seen it all from, yeah, helping people again, lower income all the way to making these big money moves. So we'll get into some finance stuff today. Charlotte, but for you, any questions just in general around like money or anything that you've noticed for your students that you would want me to touch on?
Um, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think the biggest hurdle that I see in my students is, and people who are like asking questions about the course, is not believing that they actually can get that better job with a better salary. And I think that's why like financial education is so important because when you
Yep.
talk about salary and what's possible and investing and what you can do, like you can become a millionaire just by investing. Um, People realize like, oh, other people are doing that. Like, there's no reason I can't do that too. So I guess that's the biggest thing for me is just breaking down that barrier of telling people like you really can do this. Like even if you are making $12 an hour, you can set a little bit aside. It's really hard. It takes a lot of work, but you know all the tricks and tips to do
Yeah.
that.
And you're touching on something that's so huge because someone said gross working for others in the chat, and I'm like, yeah, it's the same. But there's nothing wrong with working a 9 to 5. Like I would
Hmm.
say milk your 9 to 5 to fund your investments, get out of debt, and then like fund these side businesses. Because you and I both started this while working full-time jobs, and then with no
Hmm.
idea that this would take off. So yeah, and on that note, you're like, I never knew how much these fields could pay, and it's so true. Like we're running our own businesses too. Like I used to think $10,000 month was like the craziest thing I've ever heard, and then I heard
Hmm.
someone in my space doing a $30,000 month, and it's like then my mindset just kind of like expanded to that. So I think TikTok is so
Totally.
powerful, and then but even taking a step back from that, it's just like understanding what options that you have because tech is
Hmm.
a high paying field. And I know you talk a lot about it in your course. And we talked about this in the live that we did on Instagram as well of like when you're looking to break into tech, you don't necessarily have to go into like the Googles and the Apples and the things like that. Do you mind
Hmm.
explaining that? Because I think that's a nice segue of like just how can we start increasing our income? And then we'll talk about what to do with our income. A, where we're at now, but then B, once we start increasing it.
Totally. Yeah. Like you had mentioned, you climbed your way up to Apple. And I think that's a really important thing to highlight because people think, oh, like break into tech, get a tech job. That means compete with all these people that are applying to Google who have years of experience and maybe even have degrees in a tech field. But when I say break into tech, what I mean is get your first tech job. And that's usually not at a big tech company. That's usually at like a Fortune 500 company that's not a tech company because those are giant companies that are always hiring, have good salaries because they're such giant companies, but there's way less competition to actually get a job there. And the skills that you need are far fewer because it's not a tech company. So, like in data analytics, for example, to work at Meta, you need to know SQL, Tableau, and Python. To work at Comcast, which is where I spent a large chunk of my data analytics career, you only need SQL and Tableau. You can learn Python if you want, but you don't need to. And there's just far less people applying. So you just can't compare yourself to like the people who are at Apple and Google because they worked their way up to those companies, you know? And if you want to work there, good for you. Awesome. They pay great salaries. If you want a bit of an easier job, you can apply to all these other companies and work your way up, or just kind of coast at one of those easier companies and make the great salary.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So let's pivot a little bit. So you have people who go from, you were making, like you said, 28,000, and then you worked your way up to like $150,000
Hmm.
in salary. Were there any like big shifts that you made when like looking at your finances when you started seeing like a lot more money coming in? Like something, for example, that comes up with a lot of people is like this idea of like lifestyle creep, right? So
Hmm.
where were you and your like mindset and your things when you're making 28,000 to 150,000? And then I'll do the same because a little bit of my salary history is my first job out of college. I was a recruiter, and my
Hmm.
base I was making around 55,000. By the time I was at Apple was around like 160,000. So a big jump as well with that. So I have a lot of stories there. I was wondering if you had any as well.
Yeah, I mean, so 28K, like that's not even the least I've ever made. I did go to college and get a degree, and after that, I worked in a candle factory for $12 an hour for a while. So 28K is just my most recent job before data analytics. So I've made way less than that too. But anyway, the biggest thing for me was like at 28K, I basically couldn't afford anything except for just the basics. Like I paid my rent every month, I paid my bills, bought groceries, but like other than that, it was tight. Like if my friends were going out to eat, it was like maybe I'll eat beforehand and like just get whatever the cheapest thing is or like not go or whatever. So it was really hard. And then once I got that 70K job, it was more like, wow, my basics are like way more than covered. I can go out, I can like order lunch now, like everything just like opened up completely. And I still had extra money to start putting in a 401k and like other investment accounts and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so it was just completely life changing. And I think when you're going from a number like 28K to a number like 70K, it's it is lifestyle creep, but it's more like going from survival to comfort than going from like comfort to excess. I would say like when I went from 70K towards 158K, that's where it became more like comfort to excess lifestyle creep, where it's like, oh, I bought a house, like I didn't have to do that. I bought a car. I live in a city, so I didn't have to do that. But it's like I could get my wants instead of just my needs. So that's how
Yeah.
it was for me.
Yeah, and we're getting a lot of data analytics questions as well. So I just want to have you keep an eye on that too, just in case there's anybody who's interested in any of your programs as well. But I would just say, speaking of finance and investing, when it comes to it, so a really important thing for anybody who's looking at going into a field that's a little bit more high paying of where you're at is it's important to look at kind of like where you're at right now with your finances because when you're managing a salary of like 70K is a lot different than managing a salary of like 50K and 40K and things like that. So and then yeah, I'm just seeing a lot of data analytics questions. So if you want to answer any of them,
It's
that
okay. So just to let everyone know, for this live, we're more talking finance, and like how to save what at whatever income level you're at, how to grow your income in the future, how to invest and stuff like that. I'll do another live this week or next week to answer data analytics questions though.
Yeah, it says, so somebody wrote, I don't have a 401k because my workplace doesn't offer it. So how would I start investing for retirement? So something that would be a really powerful, whether your employer offers a 401k or doesn't offer a 401k, is to look into, depending on your income, a Roth IRA if you're based in the US. So a Roth IRA is a way to invest that is not through your employer. So it's something that you can open up on your own. But even when I was working with you, Charlotte, and you're like, okay, I'm over the income limit. How can I still contribute to a Roth IRA? We looked into something called a backdoor Roth IRA. So a little bit more technical. So I think the big things is like when you're within your career, like one of the best things that you can do for yourself is like why Charlotte and I work together and we've partnered on things before is because saving is like a part of it and investing, but it's like how can you increase your income too through programs like data analytics or like switching careers. And then once you start making more money, how do we manage it? So the first couple of steps around your finances would be making sure you have an emergency fund built. If you're looking to switch jobs, right, you want to make sure like it's like you're making a career move that it might take a couple months to find that next move. So you want to make sure you have your foundation covered. And then once you have your emergency fund built and some of your excess like debt paid off, then we want to look into investing. And sometimes when we go into careers that maybe don't have retirement funds, which a lot of like people who come to my my course, like my company doesn't offer a 401k or and then they go into a company that first does. Like it's a really powerful way to start saving for your retirement, things like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, 401k and Roths are your vehicles for retirement.
So
Let's
you mentioned, sorry if you don't mind. So you mentioned having that emergency fund, and that brings me back to when I had my session with you, and you had me put my emergency fund into a certain account that's now making me money. So I don't know if you want to mention those kinds
yeah.
of accounts.
So, what Charlotte's bringing up is what's called a high yield savings account. Drop a me in the chat if you know what a high yield savings account is, or if you have never heard of it before. Because I'd be really curious. Because a high yield savings account basically pays you more money to bank with them. So something like your emergency fund. Um, sorry, I'm just getting like ads popping up. So an emergency fund, imagine you have like you build up to $10,000 in an emergency fund. Keeping an emergency fund in something like a Wells Fargo account or a Bank of America or Chase Bank will pay you literally pennies to maybe a couple bucks for that $10,000. Now, a high yield savings account, which we helped Charlotte move some of her money in and some of our students too, is to like if you have $10,000 right now, the interest rates they're paying is like 3.5%. That's $350 you're making off of this account just by switching banks. So that would be a huge step for somebody who is now making more money. They want to start saving and they're like, all right, I don't know what like banks to use. A high yield savings account, something like Marcus or Ally Bank, is a really powerful account to be looking at. So great suggestion there. So just in case anybody doesn't know, and I have one linked in my in the bio of my account too. And someone says, I just opened up a high yield savings account at your suggestion. That's awesome. I have one. Good point. Someone says, should we count on Social Security not being a thing when we retire? Do you have any opinions on that?
I
No.
just saw something about that today. I think when I was scrolling on TikTok about how it's going to end in like 2035 or something. So personally, I don't think we should count on it. Like best case scenario, we'll have it, but I don't
Yeah,
know. It's not looking good.
really interesting for you all just to like track your expenses for just like 1 month and then you can multiply it by 12 because depending on where you live and plus your income, imagine Social Security is at like $1,000 to $1,500 a month. Like you still have to make up that. Say your expenses are 4,000 a month and Social Security pays you 1,500. You still have to make up that gap, right? So that's the thing is like Social Security just unfortunately isn't as what it used to be.
Mhm.
So I would like investing the earlier that you can is one of the most impactful things that you can do with your finances. And I saw somebody message that I didn't know there was something between a traditional IRA versus a Roth IRA. Traditional IRAs, you take a tax break now, but you have to pay taxes when you sell. A Roth IRA, you've already paid taxes on that money, and then that money grows tax free, and you get to pull it out tax free after age 59 and a half. So that's the difference with those two accounts. And then somebody says, what do you think about investing right now when the market seems to be on the decline? So this is a really powerful question, Kevin, because you have to look historically is like there's been recessions and pullbacks in the market before. There's going to be more throughout your investing career, like your investing like timeline. Um, it all depends because if you're like 40 or 50, which I don't think you are based off of your picture, then yeah, maybe we want to be a little bit wary of what you're putting in the market. But pullbacks in the market are a really powerful time to build wealth because the
Mhm.
shares that were really high in 2021 when things were like going up, up, up have now kind of come back. So you're getting the same prices that of shares and things that you were tracking of maybe pre and around COVID times. So I personally like pullbacks in the stock market because your money goes a little bit further. But again, it depends on your investment horizon and things like that. And you just have to ask yourself, do you think this is going to last forever? Like this pullback that we're having? I don't think it's going to. Maybe through the end of the year, who knows? But eventually the market will rebound just like it's done. And the market runs in cycles. Every few years there is a correction, there is a pullback that happens.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and like investing for retirement, that should be like long-term horizon if you're young, like me and Haley are, or probably younger. So a dip in the stock market really shouldn't matter that much because you know by the time you retire, that's going to be so far in the past and everything's going to be so much higher. So don't be one of those people that buys high and sells low. Buy when it's low, which is times like right now, and then just hold it until you retire.
yeah, exactly. Like, because the best investors are people who buy and hold long term, and they say that if you hold on for 15 years, so say you're whatever age, I'm not going to try to do math right now. So you hold for 15 years, the likeliness that you're actually going to lose money is like 0.02%. Like it's super super low. So
Wow.
somebody says, what is the backdoor IRA? So, a backdoor Roth IRA is a method to contribute to your Roth IRA if you're over the income limit. So, we're talking about you guys maybe getting into tech or data analytics where your salary might be higher. So, the income limit is a modified adjusted gross income is around like 144K. But if you make more than that, then you're over the income limit for a Roth IRA. You can't contribute normally anymore. You have to do what's called a backdoor Roth. So just something to look into. And a reason why we're talking is because, again, if you move into tech or just any career in general, but if you're watching this from Charlotte's end, you're looking at getting into tech, it's potentially a high paying field. So you want to understand what all your options are. And just so, um, yeah, somebody said Ally or Marcus, amazing suggestions for your high yield savings account as well. Um, but just so you all know, people ask all the time, like, how much should I be investing for retirement? Experts recommend to try to be investing about 20% of your income. So that's of every $100 that you make, around 20% or $20 of that. So if you're investing like nothing, well, there's your gap. If you're at 3% right now, because you're like, oh, my company offers a 3% match, okay, there's your gap. You don't have to do this overnight, but maybe you're at 3%, and then next year you go to 5, then 8, and you build it up gradually. Somebody says if real estate is a good long-term investment. I mean, it depends on where and in the market and how real estate investing is. I don't think it's ever going to go away. It's really powerful, especially in the U.S. But people are like, oh, real estate investing is so passive. It's really active. There's a lot that's involved, but there are ways for it to be a little less active. Like you can get turnkey. You can buy REITs, like real estate investment trust, which gives you exposure to real estate without actually buying properties. So things like that. Um, any other questions?
So I have a question. So since we're getting so many finance questions, and Haley's obviously slaying all the answers, she is the best person that I trust, like with my finances. Like I've had one-on-one coaching sessions with her. She's helped me immensely. So I'm just curious if you want to talk a little bit about like how people can work with you and learn from you.
Yeah. So I have a free guide that's in the link in my bio. So if you get that guide, it's an amazing work like sheet that will go through how to kind of set up, and there's like a lot of exercises on there. And then I also am hosting a free investing like class on, I think it's Tuesday, February 21st. So if you get that free guide, the sign up for that will be in the guide as well. And it's super fun. Like people come in and I leave time for Q&A at the end to just like really get into it. And you just come and learn about finance and investing. Because I think what is really powerful about working with me is I don't want to just make you an investor. Like I want to make you somebody who's just amazing with money, that you know exactly how much is coming in every month, where your money is going. You feel really confident about it because there's so much about finances that's so taboo. And this is why I love like working with you too, is because even like women making a lot of money, like we wouldn't have been able to talk about this years ago, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I was making like 150, 170 K, whatever, and you're like, oh, I was making 150. Like that's like wasn't a thing that women were just like. And I know it sounds like, oh, like they're making a lot, but it's like I want you all to hear this because there are women who are doing it, and there are
Hmm.
people who are doing it, not just women, but sometimes like I don't know. A lot of I just had a friend visiting last week, and I like said something of like, oh, like make X amount per month, and like she's a server right now, and I was like telling her about your program, and she just
Uh-huh.
like never even thought about making that much money, and it wasn't like so crazy. I was like, oh, like 3,000 a month or something to like make, or whatever it was that I said, and it's just like she just hadn't heard that before, and it's just like
Hmm.
hearing these things I think is so important, and understanding what your resources are so important. Somebody asked me
Yeah.
to recommend for a Roth IRA. I love Fidelity. Fidelity is a great one. They've made the barrier to entry super easy, and they offer what's called Fidelity Go. So if you're like, I don't know what to invest in, they choose your investments for you, and they manage it for free for your first $25,000. So as you're learning, you can get your investments managed and chosen for free, and then like we can teach you how to invest, whatever, and you can always choose to manage your own in the future.
That's awesome. I wish I knew about that when I was first investing because I definitely have a lot more than 25,000 saved at this point after being in tech for a few years.
Yeah. Um, okay, let me just read some of these. Someone says I talk fast. Yeah, I do. I really do. I'm so sorry.
I do too when I'm
And
live
I really
usually.
love it because like so much of finance is just a bunch of jargon. I would say like 85, 90% of it is just terms. So if you hear a term like I say Roth IRA or index fund or backdoor Roth or whatever, just note it down. You can like I have tons of content breaking down each one of these things, but you can always go on NerdWallet, YouTube, my stuff. Like I have so much stuff on all of these things as well. But a lot of it's just like at the beginning, just hearing these terms a couple times, because everyone thinks finance and investing is math. It's not. It's
Yeah.
like terminology. I don't know about somebody said, do you think companies like BlackRock will have to pull back when it comes to buying properties? I don't know the regulations on it, so I don't know if they will. BlackRock's one of the biggest investment companies for real estate investing, like a hedge fund, I think. Somebody says my 401k is set to max risk. Should I be worried about that this year? It depends how old you are, Jane. Like if you're 20s, 30s, it's okay to be a little bit more risky with your investments because you have that time to wait out the ups and downs of the market. So it's what your level of comfortability is. And if you're investing in a 401k, I'd be curious of what you're investing in. Maybe it's a target date fund. So I'm curious how you get the max risk because usually 401ks will just, it won't ask you, oh, do you want the max risk or something like that. They usually just, oops, pick an account. Um, okay. Somebody says, how young is still young when it comes to investing? I would say, I mean, it's hard to say, but I would say like under 45 is you still anything like if you have it depends on when you're going to retire. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to retire, I'm going to throw out a large number like until you're 70, like 50 is still like you have a long time. Like you still have a long investment horizon, right? But if you're wanting to retire or become work optional by age like 60 or 50 or, you know, whatever, then obviously I think you would need a solid 15 to 20 years though. So anything younger than that from your retirement. Someone said, I'd love to join the class. I would love to have you. Um, how would you position permanent insurance within a financial plan? So are you asking about life insurance? Um, any anything come to mind for you, Charlotte, that I should touch on? I'm just reading some of these.
Ah, that's a good question.
Someone says, if my 401k is with Fidelity, should I trust their investments if I don't know what I'm doing? So, yeah, you can look at, for example, something I do with my program students is everybody who joins my program gets a one-on-one coaching session. So, for example, something I would do is be like, let's pull up your 401k. I'll tell you exactly what it's investing in and why they're doing that. So, usually, Fidelity is a really well-known brokerage.
Mhm.
Usually what they're doing, how they're dividing your portfolio is like some US stocks, a little bit of international stocks, and some bonds. So you'll just want to see the ratio and see like exactly what they're investing in, but it's usually to that extent. And if they're managing it on for you, whenever you have any brokerage manage your money for you, they ask you what age you are, and then the older you get, they'll start buying more bonds, less stocks. So they will like balance your portfolio for you. It says, is there a limit on how much you can invest on index funds? Nope. You can invest however much money you have. And you guys can ask too if you're like, oh, what's an index fund? I keep hearing that. Or what's a Roth
Mhm.
IRA? Or what's brokerage? I get that question a lot too. Um, I'm here to help. I am in between jobs, out of money, and I'll work again in 10 days. Should I use the 401k to get out of debt? If you use your 401k early, you get hit with a pre-withdrawal penalty. So I would just be mindful of that. And then, so I would, this is why it's so important. Again, why Charlotte and I talk a lot is just like we want to help you guys like build wealth and get good with
Mhm.
your money too. Is this is why it's so important to build an emergency fund for yourself in case something like this happens where you lose your job or you're in between jobs so you don't go into credit card debt. You don't have to sell any of your 401k.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, because like if you think about what happened in March 2020 and what's kind of happening too now, there's like a recession, a pullback, is people lose their jobs and then they don't have any kind of savings. And so they have to dip into their retirements or sell their portfolios off a lot lower when the market's down than what they maybe bought
Mhm.
it at. Versus if you have an emergency fund, you can live off of that cash.
And
Um,
rack up credit card debt just to get by. And then that's like almost impossible to dig your way out of because the interest rates are crazy.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I just got off a coaching call why I was a little late to this was with a couple and the husband has about 50K in credit card debt. The wife has about 20K in credit card debt, and it's just like this cycle of like if we've never learned how to manage this stuff, then moving
Mhm.
forward, it's like what do we do? So made it. We helped make a plan for them. Somebody said. Do you recommend high yield savings accounts? We already said yeah, and to Marcus or Ally are really good ones. An index fund, what an index fund is, and Charlotte, I know we went over this too when we had your coaching session. So an index fund is basically like a basket of stocks. So think of like the S&P 500, for example, which is the top 500 companies in the US. And a lot of people talk about this fund because it's a really easy way to educate people and it's a powerful fund. So instead of buying each of the 500 companies one at a time, you could just buy the index fund one time that has the entire all of those companies in it. So that's what an index fund is. It's multiple companies in at once. And then someone says, as a woman who was never taught about finances or how to plan, I appreciate you both. Amazing.
Aw. That's what
Um,
we're here for.
yeah, so that's a reason why, again, Charlotte and I like partner and like talk a lot and we work together is because we talk about this a lot. Is it's so important just to see like women working, making good money, like running their own businesses. Because I didn't really have this kind of role model when I was growing up. I don't know about you.
Yeah, totally. I didn't either at all. And it's also really cool. Like I want to point out like we both used to work in tech and now own our own businesses. And like from my standpoint, I never would have been able to take the chance to start my own business if I didn't have that really high paying job in tech. Like that's what made me able to take that risk of like I'm going to quit this job and see if my own thing can work instead. So that's why it's like it's so cool to like break into tech and then you can continue working in tech and make that awesome salary, or it gives you like the independence that you need to be able to start your own business if that's your dream. It
Yeah.
just opens so many doors having like enough money to be comfortable and have other options.
Yeah, and that yeah, I mean you're touching on it. It's so important. And a lot of people too. I think just getting into like when you start getting good with money too is just like understanding that you can use your salary to fund the things that you're really passionate about. If you're
Yeah,
not getting work, like you could get a start a side hustle or go use your money to spend more time with your family, things like that. Um,
exactly.
Somebody said, any recommendations for opening an account for children? 529 accounts are really powerful. I don't know if your family did it, but 529s are basically like a way to invest for your kids' education. And then they're passing a law that says if prior to this year, whatever you weren't using for educational purposes, if you used it for anything else, you would have incurred a penalty. They're getting rid of that, and they're saying that you can now transfer about 35K of that if you don't use it for educational purposes just into a Roth IRA. So, for
Wow.
example, if you have kids in the future, 529 accounts are really powerful for paying for their education and then also potentially giving them a jump start on their Roth IRA.
That's
I
awesome.
recommend putting monthly into an emergency fund if funds are tight. It depends on your budget. I would start with like $100, 150. But just to give you perspective, if your goal is like $3,000, that's $250 a month for a year. So you'll want to kind of see what your goal is, see what you can do, and work backwards.
How can people get your budgeting spreadsheet? Because that was a game changer for me.
Yeah, that's also in the link in my bio, and they can use code PLANNER23 for 20% off. And basically, what it does is like, as unsexy as it is, one of the most powerful things you can do with your finances is just like a very adult thing is understand what's coming in and where's our money going. So, it basically, my budget planner allows you to track all of your expenses. And people are like, oh, well, why don't I just like look at my credit card statement or have Mint do this or something like that? And it's still just too mindless. Like so much of our spending has become so
Mhm.
unconscious. We swipe, we add to cart, we Venmo, and then we ignore. By tracking even for 30 days, um, it adds this level of consciousness back into your spending. And it's something that people don't do like their entire lives. So I highly recommend it. That's what the planner is there for. And then you see, like you're in data, you see all your data and you can see the trends. Every
Yeah.
time I this, I'm spending money, or oh, I didn't realize I was spending so much on Amazon or something like that.
Yeah, Amazon was a shock for me. I had no clue how much I was spending on there until I started tracking it.
Yeah, someone says I'm late to the party. I just got here. Who are your presenters and what is your field, Charlotte? I would love for you to reintroduce yourself just in case somebody has recently started tuning in, and then I'll do the same.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I'm Charlotte Chaze. I help people break into tech by learning data analytics. So basically, my whole thing is I help people from a completely different field get into their first tech job. And I do that because that's how I got my first tech job. I just started learning new skills online, went from a 28K salary to a 70K salary, And then in less than 4 years, climbed my way to 158K salary just from learning data analytics. So that's my thing, is like helping people increase their incomes by getting a better job.
Yeah, and now you teach it. You have a free program and a paid program as well to help people pivot. And
Mhm.
I think it's just so interesting. Can you also say what the average salary is for people who take your program after they complete it?
Yes. So it's so awesome. So the average salary in the US for data analytics entry level is 74K. And the average salary for people who go through my program and get their first data analytics job is 74,500. So it's about the US average. And it does go up and down slightly because, like, as people are constantly landing jobs, the number changes a little bit. But the average salary increase is $32,000 after taking my program. So that's because people go from being teachers to being data analysts, being hairstylists to being data analysts. So you're seeing these huge salary jumps because you can really go from any field into data analytics by learning the skills online.
Yeah. And then I'm Haley. I'm the founder of Femme Financial Coaching. I teach women, like people of color, LGBTQ plus, basically marginalized groups of people, all things money. I started my journey not knowing anything about finances, like many of us, to starting to learn it on the side, to teaching it on the side, and now I teach it full time. And then I connected with Charlotte because I saw this other badass woman who teaches and helps other people increase their income. And I do the same thing. My former job prior to going into Femme Financial full time was I was a recruiter at Apple. I was an executive headhunter for a ton of years. I've worked with really great brands and I've helped them find talent and get people jobs and negotiate their income because my goal is not just to help you learn how to manage your money and grow your money, but also, yeah, not just learn how to manage your money, but grow your money as well through resources like Charlotte, through learning how to negotiate your salary, all of these things. Somebody says, how long does the program take on average for your program, Charlotte?
So most people take 4 to 6 weeks. That's the average. Some people finish it faster and some take longer. It just depends on how much time you have to put into it. But it's designed to be very efficient. So if you can sit down and do it like 20 to 30 minutes a day, you'll be done really fast.
Yeah. Somebody said, is there a data analytics side gig? Is that a thing?
People ask me that a lot, and I have looked into it because I get that question a lot. There are some like freelance jobs on sites like Upwork, but it is mostly just a typical corporate 9 to 5 kind of job. It's just a more like work from home flexible kind of job within that category.
Yeah. I was just thinking of a new business, and I don't know if your thoughts on this because I don't know how your mind works, but I'm always thinking like, oh, how can the world be a little bit better? I want
Totally.
better like a business that connects people to like side jobs. Like you know how you can go on Craigslist and they have like all these jobs, but there's not like I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like connects people if you have a couple extra hours a week, like, hey, this store is looking for this, but not Craigslist, like and not Indeed, just like an app or something.
Yeah, like a gig work app where you
Big
can
work.
like input what skills you have and then people can put like what they're looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd
Because
be
like
cool.
so much stuff can be trained, you know, and there's so many
Yeah.
local spots that could just use an extra hand. But
Hmm.
like people like you and like me, or just like working professionals who have extra time, you know, maybe they don't have kids and they're like, oh, I could pick up a couple extra hours somewhere. But they don't even know like what their community needs. Oh, they
Hmm.
work. I'm not familiar with Upwork, but I guess I'll look into it. Oh, cool. Then it exists. Um, what do you think about data analytics on Code Academy?
So I'm not a big fan of those kinds of sites for being your primary source of learning because they will teach you the basics, but they won't give you a portfolio. And what you really need to land your first job in a field like data analytics is a portfolio showing recruiters and hiring managers that you really do have the skills because they're not going to trust that you have the skills if you haven't done the job before unless you can prove it to them. And the way to do that is with the portfolio. So those websites like Codecademy are great for learning, but you will have to end up doing another thing on top of that. So that's why my program, like I teach you all the basics, and as you learn, you complete projects and put them into a portfolio so that when you're done, you have a portfolio full of projects that you did as you learned. So that's why I think my program is way better than any of those others, and that's actually why I made my program.
Yeah. And somebody said, would you say college is for chumps? Should I drop out and take your course instead?
Um, I don't want to tell anyone to drop out of college. Like, if you have the resources to be in college, it's never a bad thing to have on your resume. But when I say you don't need a degree to go into data analytics, that is true. I have had a lot of students go from jobs that have nothing to do with data analytics and have no degree and land 75K jobs. So I don't want to say like drop out of college because having that degree will give you that extra leverage to start at a higher than average salary.
Yeah.
But you just don't need a degree.
My opinion is don't drop out, but try not to spend as much on it. Like you can get a degree for a lot less expensive if you're not just aligning with it, because at the end of the day, it's just the degree that employers are looking for. And I wish I could tell so many of my friends who never finished college, like, and they're struggling, and so as annoying as it is, it's just like a broken system that, oh, you get a degree, you'll get a good job here, even though people without degrees are just as qualified. Unfortunately, like I would say, just try to get it, but don't spend a lot of money getting that degree. Just get it to say you got it and then move on to things you're a little bit more passionate about.
Totally.
I don't know if that's a sexy answer, but yeah. Okay, anything else that already exists? Yeah, I guess I'm not, but I was just thinking about it for like my specific community. I haven't looked into
Mhm.
Upwork, but like I just think of like where I live, and I don't know, I keep seeing all these things on TikTok of like how we're so individualistic now, like we're not like community based. I'm like, I
Mhm.
just wish there were more apps to be like, know your neighbor, get to know your neighbor, get to know what like volunteer opportunities are available within like a 5 mile radius or something
I
like that.
think that's another app. That one's called Nextdoor. Have you heard of that one?
Do they offer like all of that? I don't have Nextdoor.
I
I have.
don't know the details of like if they have volunteer work and stuff, but I know there's like people will post like, hey, like if someone can help me with my fence, I'll give you like $50 or whatever,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, you know?
Somebody asked where we're located. I'm in Los Angeles. Charlotte,
And
where are
I'm in Philadelphia. I don't care about sports, but go Eagles.
you?
The
Awesome.
Super Bowl's this
So yeah,
weekend.
we're just talking any finance questions, investing questions, data analytics, or tech questions. So again, Charlotte's background is in data analytics. I did recruiting, headhunting, and now finance, obviously. And then we've also both started our own businesses. So if anybody has any interest in understanding any of that, we'll just hang out for maybe 10 more minutes and answer anything. Somebody says, how do I get into market research? But I don't understand what that means. Is that a you question?
Market research, I don't really know much about that either. I'm
So,
more on the data analytics side.
yeah, and your question a little bit. Someone says, difference between data analyst and business intelligence developer. Is that a you
So
question?
it's that kind of thing just depends on the company. They could be the exact same job and different companies are calling it different names. They could be slightly different jobs. So for that kind of thing, just look at the job description. If it says SQL and Tableau, it's more of a data analyst job. If it says, I don't even know what would like a business developer, what that would be outside of that. But yeah, so just rely on the descriptions because job titles can be really misleading these days.
Yeah. Somebody asked how much
Data.
your program costs if you're comfortable sharing.
Oh yeah, sure. So I have a free course and then I also have a paid program. The paid program is 249 and then I also have a payment plan option. So yeah.
Pays for itself if you're
Oh
average.
my God, yeah. Like it's I always joke about how it's like not much of an investment if you're going to get a 32,000 salary increase like after taking it.
Yeah. So you're having some more questions about Code Academy and difference between
Oh,
data
sorry.
and analyst. And then I have a question on any sites for online finance side part-time jobs. It depends on what you're looking for. But I would just say, I think both you and I can kind of touch on just like side jobs and part-time jobs is like do something that you're passionate about or that like that doesn't feel like work. Because for you teaching data analytics, it comes so naturally to you. Like it's not
Mhm.
something that I'm like drawn to, and I'm sure finance isn't a lot and money isn't something a lot of people are drawn to. So if you're looking for a site to start something on the side, is like I always say, look internally, don't look externally. Like what could you do for hours on end that like lights you up?
Mhm.
And it can be even in the form of like a part-time job like at a gym. Like if you like to be around fitness people but you work in data analytics, but fitness is super important to you, like that could be a great side business or side job that you have.
Yeah.
We intertwine side business, side hustle a lot with just like part-time job, but a part-time job is also a side hustle. Like I don't know. Oh, we have a cool any insider tips from a recruiter for data analyst newbies. So I have tips, but I'd love to hear yours specifically for data analyst.
Sure. So for me, it's definitely so my impression of that question is like for the recruiter interview. Did I hear that right?
Insider tips from a recruiter for data analyst newbies. So maybe you can talk about like what questions do recruiters ask your data analytics people?
Oh yeah, okay, that's a great idea. So this is like again where the portfolio comes in, because like you are going to get asked by the recruiter like what experience do you have with data analytics, or even how many years of experience do you have with data analytics. And when you're a newbie entering the field, you don't want to say, "Oh no, like I have no years of experience." What you want to do is kind of reroute the question and answer it with what you do have. And like if you go through my program, you'll have a portfolio with 9 projects in it. So you'll say something like, "Oh, well, I have 9 projects in my portfolio. Have you gotten a chance to take a look at it? I can walk you through my favorite project that I've done." And you just kind of go over like, this is the data that I used. These are the insights that I found. These are the programs and the tools that I used to work on it. And as you're explaining all of that, work in some of the keywords from the job description. So if they say, they use like this one specific SQL tool, you can say, I use that specific SQL tool to do this. Or you can say, I didn't use that specific SQL tool that's in the job description, but I used this other one that's really similar, and I'll easily be able to pivot towards the one that you guys use. Stuff like that.
You also got how to tailor your resume if you come from a non-traditional background.
So I have a whole course on this, but so one of the things that I have my students do is um, look up the job description for a few data analyst postings and explain your current experience that you already have using keywords from that job description. So it's really hard to think of like job description bullet points off the top of my head,
You'll
but
have like
another trick,
data
what?
driven, you'll have SQL, like you have your hard
Mhm.
skills and then you have your soft skills. So if a hard skills like SQL, Python, whatever, and you took like you want to make sure that that's on it. But if it also says like team member or like good executive communication skills or something like that, you just want to read the job description and make sure you have some of these buzzwords on it as well.
Yes.
Doesn't matter your background. Like, I mean, if you're coming as a teacher, like time management or whatever, there's like a lot
Mhm.
of things that you can do.
And another thing you can do is use ChatGPT, which if you don't know what that is, go ahead and Google it. It's this awesome AI chatbot. You can actually ask it to write a resume for you. So like if you're a hairstylist right now and you want to go into data analytics, you can say to ChatGPT, write me a resume for a hairstylist who's applying to data analytics jobs.
Um,
And it's not going to give you exactly what your resume should say because it doesn't know what your specific hair salon has you do, but it's going to give you really good ideas of how to phrase your experience so that it is more relevant for a data analytics job.
yeah, that's huge. That's awesome.
And we do that in my course. So,
Yeah. Perfect. And then someone just says, where should I start learning about personal finance? I have a free guide in the link in my bio, and I'm hosting a free intro to finance and investing class on February 21st. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of people who show up, and I do Q&A at the end. Do you think that it's important to know all the functions in Excel along with SQL and Tableau?
so absolutely not. Excel can be important on a data analytics job if your boss and your team uses it. In my experience, I've barely used Excel as a data analyst. you probably will get asked in your interviews, are you comfortable in Excel? So you want to learn the basics so that you can comfortably say, yes, I know I'm comfortable in Excel. Like I can do pivot tables. And that's why in my program, we do go over the basics of Excel. But in most data analytics jobs, it's going to be a lot more focused around SQL than Excel.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Charlotte, thank you so much for the time. I always loved catching up with you.
Me too.
I like your business and how I think what I love just about like both of us is just like I know our businesses help people like make
Yeah.
more money, develop their skills, and so I always love working with you because I know I can vouch for you and everything that you do. Um,
Totally. I feel the exact same way. We should do lives more. And
I
everyone let us know like what you would want to see us do together more too, because we want to work with each other.
I know. Um, it would be awesome. So I think that's it. But there's just a couple last things. I can't work in the field at the moment. Wanted to get some experience. Anyways, I can volunteer in data analytics. I don't know that.
I
Um,
don't think so. I haven't heard of anything like that.
Yeah, someone, shoot, I just lost everything. Hold on. Somebody else last said, would it be beneficial to go through Charlotte's free course before the paid course to jump into? Yeah, right? Then you'll get,
So I always recommend, like, if you're not sure, definitely start with the free course. And then if you're finding that you really need guidance to be successful and stick to it, then do the paid program. If you already know you're going to need guidance to stick to it and get through it, and you want the support of like the Discord community and stuff, you can just start with the paid program. You don't have to do the free course first. The free course is more for like, if you don't have the resources to do the paid program and you're still really determined, you can do it with the free course.
exactly. And someone's like, oh, can I volunteer or something? But I know in your program you offer like things to work through. I can't remember what you call them, like scenarios to work through or things like that.
Like
So,
portfolio projects.
exactly, projects. Yeah. So, like, that's a way to get started.
Yeah.
Is there a way to get a good recruiter? Because I get ghosted a lot of the times. Drop what field you're in. I have a lot of tips on this if you're in recruiting,
Oh,
because a lot of recruiters are specialized. My recommendation for anybody is to look for a specialized recruiter. So, for example, myself, I was a specialist in supply chain recruiting. So that's how I got picked up by Apple because Apple has the biggest supply chain in the world. And just so you
wow.
know, for anybody here too, I don't know if you recommend this, Charlotte, but I got my break into tech through a contract role. So it was like contract to hire. I
That's
don't
a
know.
great way to do it.
Yeah. So, because I was trying to break into tech for so long because of the pay and all of this stuff, but I didn't have a background specifically in tech. I had it in recruiting, I had it in supply chain, but there was the contract roles. So yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I always tell people like if they're not sure if they want to accept a contract role or not, accept it and just keep applying. So you're making the higher salary already, but if you don't know about the contract role, just keep applying to more jobs until you get a
yeah,
permanent one.
100%. And then just going back to recruiter is like you just gotta. I think the biggest thing is you gotta show your value to the recruiter. Depending, like it's hard to say because I don't know if you're trying to switch fields. In which case, that it's a little bit hard because um, I would say communication is really big when it comes to being a working with a recruiter. Is re- what I'm getting at is like, for example, I was a recruiter for supply chain, but I never worked in supply chain, right? So when I was looking for candidates, if they allowed me to understand like that they're going to be valuable, that they understood what they were doing, if they can make me understand that, I know that they can make the client or my hiring manager understand it. So I would say is like make sure you're clearly communicating the value that you can bring to the company. How can you save the company time? How can you save them money? Because when a recruiter is working with you and they're going to pitch you to their hiring manager, whoever's hiring for this job, they're going to be like, oh, John or so and so is going to be amazing fit for your team because of X, Y, and Z. So get really clear on how you're pitching yourself, like your stump speech,
Mhm.
your about me, and the value that you're bringing. I think that'll help you with recruiters. And then finding, if you're working with an agency, finding a recruiter who specializes in your space. So there are recruiters who specialize in data analytics positions. So you'll
Mhm.
want to go find those recruiters, for example, if you're looking around as well. Um,
I could talk about this for so long, but I do have to go.
yeah,
I'd love to do another live where maybe we can focus on like job applications and interviewing and stuff.
love to. It's such a huge topic, especially right now with tech and everything.
Yeah.
But just message us because I see some more questions coming in. Charlotte, I appreciate your time so much. Thank you for taking it, and we
You
will, I'm
too.
sure, be working together more in the future.
Awesome. Me too. Thank you so
Bye.
much, Haley, and everyone for asking questions and watching. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.